Hi everyone, welcome back.
Hi guys.
Nice to see you. So we're back in our loft, and today, I think we weren't here last time, were we?
We were at my house
your
last
place.
time. Yeah.
Dan's wonderful place, the barn.
Yeah.
So today we're smelling a couple of things, neither of which I've smelt before. The first of which, if you believe in dinosaurs, which I think frankly is true, is Tyrannosaurus Rex. Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Whatever you like.
We're so excited. By Zoologist. Dan knows this fragrance well.
Yeah, well, so I've had the sample for a while and I've smelt it a bit, but I think it's fair to say it's one of the releases we've been most excited about.
Yeah.
So we should say, we're reviewing two new fragrances. We're doing T-Rex by Zoologist, and we're also doing Tokyo by Gallivant. We're reviewing two fragrances. And the reason we're reviewing both of these, I think they're kind of similar companies.
Yeah, similar outlook on fragrance.
So you've got Zoologist is a Canadian-based company that do fragrances inspired by animals.
Yeah.
They actually tend to be inspired by the animal habitat, but you've got things like bat, camel, moth.
Yeah.
You've had
the wonderful Hyrax, which we spoke about recently.
This is the first extinct animal.
They're not extinct.
T-Rex, as of, it's been a while.
Damn it.
Bad news. And then we're also doing a review of Gallivant, which is an English-based company, a slightly younger company than Zoologist, but they're really booming. You can now buy their fragrances all over the world. Their fragrances are inspired by cities. The city we're looking at is Tokyo. And I thought whereas Zoologists are taking the idea of animals and basing a fragrance around that, Gallivant's taking cities and creating a fragrance around that. We were just discussing this before, and I think it's something we really love when a smell can really conjure up an image.
Yeah,
what these two companies, they're really planting a very distinct image, whatever that be. When you hear the word T-Rex, you have an idea of what the smell is going to be like. When you hear the word Tokyo, you have an idea of what it's going to smell like. And so it really affects your experience. They're also similar companies in that they have really impressive creative directors behind them who then employ some of the most exciting perfumers around.
And it's exciting, isn't it, that they care. A lot of fragrance companies will have someone at the helm, but who doesn't really care about the artistic output, and they're happy to take the cash and be the umbrella over the organisation.
I feel these are companies who are showcasing.
He really directs what's going on.
Yeah. We're going to start with T-Rex.
Start with the sort of biggest and scariest.
So this, we should say, although I've said the companies, the other reason I wanted to pair these two fragrances is because I kind of thought Tokyo, T-Rex, there's a hint of Godzilla.
Absolutely.
To the pairing. So maybe if you layered them, you get a kind of a Godzilla fragrance.
We should try and layer them later.
Yeah, we will.
Just to see what's going on.
Similar companies, very, very different fragrances. We are going to start with T-Rex from the House of Zoologist.
Wow. Beautiful picture right off the bat.
Yes, really kind of cheeky picture. And he's also selling some limited edition bottles. I think there are about 450 of them, which come in these red boxes. And on those bottles, the T-Rex is wearing glasses.
Oh, really?
So pretty cool. It's fair to say.
He has astigmatism. Poor guy. We're all scared of them.
I think they're sunglasses.
You can't see what they're doing. Of course. Sunny in the jungle.
I think it's fair to say we're very, very excited by this. I really love the House of Zoologist, but T-Rex is made by Antioni Gardoni, who is the perfumer behind Roullier.
Wonderful things.
Which, if you know Roullier, you probably know them for either Mai or Mem, which are two absolutely spectacular fragrances. We keep talking about doing a review of Mem, and I think we're going to do one too, because it's one of my best purchases over the last couple of years. Incredible stuff. So expectations were very, very high.
Yeah.
So what does it smell like?
Well, the colour straight off is it's dark and rich.
Dark and rich. I'm going to give you a smell.
Thanks, mate.
I'll give you a spray. Then you have a smell.
On the left hand.
Let's go left. Let's both go left.
Look at that. Thanks.
A few squirts. I can go like this.
Yes.
You get quite a lot. I have tested this a couple of times. It's great that there's a long.
I love that.
Notes list. I don't know if you can see this. A long notes list and a long description, which you can find on the website. But by saying T-Rex, you've got such so many kind of expectations. I get this big explosion at the beginning. It's quite a bright explosion, actually.
Yeah.
I get a lot of bergamot and neroli and some almost, I don't know if there's kind of a pink pepper.
It's a very sparkling thing, full of daylight.
Yeah, exactly. It's surprisingly bright and energetic, I think, the opening of this. I will say, you know, I've tested this on a couple of occasions, and it changes loads a lot in the first hour and a half or so. You get this big kind of whirlwind of activity, which is something, if you've tried a fragrance by Antioni Gardoni, that is what you expect. You expect this big kind of whirlwind of fragrance. And already I'm starting to get these kind of rich, but quite sweet resins coming through.
Yeah.
And I'm also getting a hint of fir, and it also lists kind of laurel leaf. I'm getting a hint of kind of greenness. Almost a slightly kind of camphor quality to it. Do you get that?
I'm getting a sort of bright medicinal thing, but with the camphorous thing, I'm not getting anything too sort of too mentholated.
No. And it's
quite a brooding sort of.
And I can't help but think, you know, again, because it's called T-Rex, I see this, you know, this canopy of green leaves, of aged green leaves over a jungle, a Jurassic jungle. That's. You know, by giving the name, that's what comes into my mind, and what came into my mind when I was smelling it. And then it's
very earthy as well.
Yeah.
Even despite that bright, arresting opening.
Yeah, it's grounded. The one thing,
very earthy quality.
When I read this notes list, I mean, it's got laurel leaf, neroli, champaca, geranium, jasmine, rose, osmanthus, ylang ylang. It's got a big list of florals. And I didn't get this whirlwind, sheepberry floral feel, which I perhaps expected. I felt what all the florals did is they seemed to come together in this, as if this rich, thick vegetation. Which again made me think of this big kind of jungle.
It's almost as if you'd taken all of the florals and sort of stewed them together.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there'd been a volcano or something.
It feels incredibly dense, I think. It's not like things kind of fleeting across. It feels really rich and dense and thick and heavy. I'm also starting to get some olibanum in this, some incense.
Absolutely.
Which adds a bit more kind of brightness and sparkle.
There's also, for me, there's a little bit of, it's really hard to explain, but you know, some fragrances have a lot of energy straight away. This to me is like an after event, like something has just happened.
Yeah.
And you're smelling the ground afterwards.
It's quick because the opening.
I'm getting lots of hints.
The opening is very bright, isn't it? But the very opening disappears very quickly.
Very soon. Yeah.
And what you've got now is something thick and heavy and rich and round.
And there's a very dulled minty note. It's not in your face, but there's some like a very soft mint, almost.
I feel it's almost that kind of more kind of camphorous, that kind of the way the fir is working with the olibanum to create that slightly kind of almost slightly sour.
A little bit, yeah.
But there's also this greenness, and then
I get a sort of a slight chamomile tea thing as well.
I think you're exactly right. I would say definitely. And then I'm already starting to get this kind of thick, leathery kind of quality to it. This round kind of rich leather, and then I'm not quite getting it yet. But for my two previous wearings, after this kind of big whirlwind opening, the thing which dominated from the mid right to the dry down was cade oil. I got absolutely loads and loads and loads of cade oil. So cade oil you get from juniper bushes, from juniper berries, and cade oil gives a very kind of tarry effect, a kind of burnt.
It's almost a match.
Yeah,
snuffed match.
It's very, very strong in a city on fire by imaginary authors, but it often creates this either burnt match or this tarry. And so, if we think of T-Rex, you think if you looked at any of the promotional pictures, you see these volcano pits.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that. I'm not getting it quite yet, but both times I wore it, especially the second time, I felt this cade oil note lasted for ages. This T-Rex doesn't actually project quite as substantially as I expected, but I did find it lasted for ages. I mean, it lasted for kind of for 12, 14 hours. But it was this cade oil note which seemed to last all the way through to the end.
What's clever for me is the fact that although I can't really smell that cade oil yet I can imagine it. The way it's going already, I can see the sort of segue into it. I'm getting it. I'm getting a little bit I'm getting a little bit of this old worldy thing that I love, with things like amber fetish and things. The slightly more dangerous. Sort of dangerous blending of notes.
Well, the other thing actually, I haven't said. I definitely get. There's definitely some kind of. I do get some animalics in there. I think I get some civet and some musks. There's
quite a strong
warm, earthy, and there is a tiny bit of sourness to this, which I think could be civet. I don't know. He does list civet in this, so it's probably
something quite vegetal as well. Like if you've taken lots of sort of potato peel, and just melted it down. It's very earthy.
I think that's the result. I think that's the result of all those florals. As I say, they're not swimming, sparkling florals. They seem to be thick and heavy, and as if you're walking through a jungle. They're really, really, really very dense.
There's something wonderful in there that reminds me of, and I can't quite picture it, but it reminds me of a smell which I used to love, which was varnish. I don't know what that is. But I get like a slightly new, like,
that could be the kind
varnish on an old bench.
The resiny kind of feel. There are definitely kind of woods in here. There's definitely sandal. See, I now think I'm starting to get the cade oil. Do you get it?
I'm not quite getting it yet, but my nose is still working out. Yours is
I spent a bit of time
already there, isn't it?
And okay, so when we talked about this, I said I also got the sense of an accord, which was not listed, and I might have been bonkers.
Yes.
But I got it both times, and it was after the cade oil started. I got this slight blood accord, and it particularly reminded me of the blood accord which Beaufort use.
And in 1805.
And in Beaufort it's normally combined with birch tar, and I get a hint of not so much birch tar, but it seemed to come out of the cade oil in this. And again, I don't know if it was by association, because I'm thinking T-Rex, I'm thinking chewing through flesh, but I was sure I got a hint of that.
I wonder if it's something like a slightly iron quality.
Yeah.
There's that that taste you get if someone punches you in the nose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A little bit of that.
Taste blood.
It's very pictorial and it's very theatrical.
It's very theatrical. I would say having the two fragrances I know of Antioni Gardoni are Mai and Mem, which I own a full bottle of, and especially Mem I find extremely kaleidoscopic and changes loads. T-Rex I find changes a lot over the first half hour, 40 minutes. After that I did find it stayed. I got stuck in this cade oil. That seemed to dominate, and after the 45 minutes it stayed the same for a long time, but it didn't change. It wasn't quite as kaleidoscopic as I perhaps expected.
No, it's very much a still life for me, rather than lots of moving stuff.
A lot happens in the beginning.
Chaotic.
Loads happens in the beginning, but then after it kind of sits down. I wonder, should we try Tokyo, and then maybe you can kind of come back?
Yeah, let's see how this goes. I'm starting to get a weirdly sort of dark gothic bubblegum thing as well.
It's very dark. Maybe that's kind of a tuberosy feel. I don't know if there's tuberose listed, but
do you get that?
Anyway, let's move on. So to something completely different. We're going to the house of Gallivant. So I think we mentioned Gallivant in our best of British lineup video. All of their fragrances are based on cities. I remember when I first got the test pack, there were 4 or 5 fragrances I could have easily bought. I really loved London, which is this kind of leather and rose, and really kind of dirty, edgy, exciting side of London. Tel Aviv was this kind of white floral, slightly sweet with lots of body and interest. Istanbul reminds me a bit of Jubilation 25. It's this kind of, rich, spicy, or Popanaxi, really, really delicious. I could have easily bought any of them.
They're well made, aren't they?
In the end, the one I bought from the original sample pack was Brooklyn, which is just, I don't normally like. I'm not a massive fan of citrus, and I don't always love white florals. So this is a citrus and white floral fragrance, which I absolutely love. And it's partly because it's the way the benzoin kind of wraps them all up, and it becomes absolutely delicious. Anyway,
it's so well made.
The one thing, if you're not familiar with Gallivant, all of the fragrances are very unique, very interesting, bold, but they have no rough edges at all. For any of you watching who think, oh, some of these indie kind of niche houses, they can be a bit rough and a bit weird. These are...
They're made in a very French classical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really. Right. So we move to Tokyo,
which is far away.
It's a long way.
What have they come up with here?
I really like, and so when they send them out. Sent out this sample which Nick sent to us, which is very good of him. They give you these little luggage cards as well, which is nice. Pretty cool, pretty nice touch. They also send you a card to test on it, which is really nice. The one thing I did find with Gallivant scents is it's always Nick Stewart, who's the kind of creative director. It's his idea of a city. So, for instance, Brooklyn, you might think of it as being the edgy alternative to Manhattan and a bit rough around the edges, but what he's gone for is something bright and energetic and full of life and summery. So it's always what Nick thinks of the city, not what you might necessarily think of the city.
Because of course we all have our memories and associations with anywhere we go to. You could go to, I don't know, let's say you could go to a really rough and dangerous part of a city that's known for like high-flying drug deals in corners, crime, craziness, but you could actually be sitting in a hotel drinking champagne, wearing velvet, and that's your memory.
And Nick's been to
not
Tokyo,
that Brooklyn is that. Brooklyn's wonderful,
quite a bit, and his idea of Tokyo seems a little bit different to mine. Anyway, let's stop waffling on. Let's give you a spray.
It a whirl.
This is very different from T-Rex. So the big thing, the note which hits me straight away is yuzu, and actually the fragrance it reminds me
yuzu mandarin for me.
Quite possibly, yeah.
The yuzu.
But the fragrance which initially sprung to mind was Eau d'Issy.
Yeah. First, really.
Yeah, I mean, if for any, especially we were kind of like kids of the 90s, and kind of grew up, and that was one of the first big popular fragrances I was aware of. And so, if anybody who knows Eau d'Issy by Issey Miyake, it's this yuzu note.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, there's also yuzu in yuzu caramel, but it's not. Don't expect. Having said that, this is not a simple.
Smell like
it's not a simple 90s aquatic. Don't worry. It's much more complex than that. Immediately, I'm getting this lovely cardamom, and there's also a kind of around.
Absolutely.
It's almost like patchouli that's coming straight away.
There's some cooking spices and things coming on here.
There's a lot of spice. Oh, it's amazing actually, because the initial spray is so bright yuzu, and it's getting a lot more complex and a lot richer and a lot thicker.
Do you know what's interesting? This gives you a completely bum steer when you first spray it, because I thought, bright, happy citrus, and almost immediately, there's much more going on.
There's much more than that. And give it about 30 seconds or something. There's then a note which I wasn't expecting at all, but for me took over for quite a while. Not took over, but became a big player. It's a floral note, which I really feel, and it reminded me a tiny bit of Zonka by L'Artisan Parfumeur. I started to get a lot of iris from this.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of iris, which gives me that kind of lipsticky association.
Yeah.
Which I didn't see it coming.
Do you know what I'm also getting a little bit of is a slight burnt caramel immortelle note. Yeah, just a tiny little hint.
That's the thing, for something which starts so bright and clean, there is, I find all the way through this, a slight dirtiness that I don't think he lists immortelle, but I know exactly what you mean, almost like fenugreek.
Yeah, absolutely.
What he does list is wasabi. Which is an
umami thing, isn't it?
Which is something which you don't normally, you don't encounter that much in fragrance.
I once got a wasabi pea stuck up my nose.
Really? Oh, so you know perfectly.
And it wasn't great, but this is much better.
But now, as soon as I say wasabi, and in fact, especially as you say wasabi pea, I'm getting that kind of like horseradishy, freshly grated, spicy, but with a kind of roundness and depth to that spice.
Yeah, It's got a lot of frisson to it, hasn't it?
Are you getting iris?
It's buzzing. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really getting.
But it's not a sort of it's not a serious, heavy-going, funereal, idyllic sort of.
No. It's not an iris sense at all. I'm also.
It's a little bit buttery.
Yeah, definitely. I get a bit of incense, and it was just that. I also get a hint of vetiver, and it was that combination of incense, vetiver, and iris, which made me think of tonka. It doesn't smell exactly like tonka, but it gives. It's a really interesting feel, and it's really interesting. It makes me wonder exactly what his idea of Tokyo was, because it feels kind of. Spiritual is such a kind of vague word, but it's got that kind of slightly melancholic still feel to it. But there's also a spicy richness to it, and that lipsticky, makes me think of if you've been to Tokyo, the way I think of Tokyo is it's really, really busy. There's loads going on. There's lots of nightlife, really lots of energy, which goes against what I've just said of being kind of still and melancholic. And I wonder if that lipsticky vibe gives it a bit more punch and balls.
Yeah, I just had a thought and an image now.
It's very interesting.
It's based on that part of the world and their response to perfume. In that, in Japan, China, they're not huge into the big, heavy sort of scents. And I can almost imagine that you'd go, if you went to Tokyo, or I went to Tokyo, we probably would wear the heaviest thing in the world. But we'd wear something very light.
Yeah.
And we'd go out, but actually the smells of everything else, like the smell of a food market and street food, and the smells of the city would combine with...
I think absolutely right. It was interesting because one of the other notes listed, when I received I saw the message saying that this fragrance was coming out, and the notes listed in it, I saw hinoki, and it happened to be that day I was wearing hinoki by Comme des Garçons. So I sent a message to Nick Stewart saying, "Oh, like how fortuitous! I happen to be wearing hinoki by Comme des Garçons." He said, "Oh, it doesn't. I don't think Tokyo smells like hinoki by Comme des Garçons," and he's absolutely right. It doesn't smell similar. This is very incensey, slightly camphorous.
There's a sweet aspect of it.
But there's something to do actually with the feel of it.
Yeah.
But this is, again, it's got this kind of slightly relaxed, almost kind of spiritual feel, but there's depth and body, and that's what I feel about Tokyo.
It has a softness which I really like. It has a sort of an elegance and a roundness, and it's not a punchy in your face sort of thing at all. It sort of invites you in.
But it is interesting. It's not safe. I don't think it's bland or safe. I think there's a lot going on there.
But it invites you to come in and smell.
Yeah, I think it's a great kind of thing. If you're
hospitality.
If you're quite dressed up and you want to be amongst people, and you don't want to have something, you don't want to be wearing interlude or something huge, but you want something which people are going to smell and go, "Oh, actually, yeah, I could smell more of that. That's interesting. That's got some familiar kind of bright citrus, but there's a lot more going on to it." I'm
getting a slightly savoury, biscuity sort of quality as well.
Yeah.
Something very, very sort of a delicate hint of it, but
right.
No, I like it a lot. I really like it a lot.
So how was T-Rex when you came back to it? It's very great.
Now I'm getting the cade. I'm getting a lot of cade and a lot of.
Do you get the blood?
Yeah.
See, I'm sure. I'm not making up.
I'm getting a sort of a very irony mineral quality.
Yeah.
And I'm also getting a little bit of Jet A1 engine fuel, just like a little hint.
Yeah.
Like the fume of it rather than the essence of it.
But it makes me think of.
The cade is beginning to.
It makes me think of this. Because I've seen the promotional pictures, it makes me think of this volcano with scorched earth and the smouldering heat. This big, dramatic scene.
If you picked up a pile of earth the day after there'd been a lava flow, and smell that, pyroclastic flow, I think they call it.
Very good. And it was then this cade oil smell which I felt lasted for hours.
It's incredible, isn't it, when you think that.
God, there's such. I mean, these are such
different world. But when you think that this
T-Rex
has come with all of those associations, but then something like cade, which comes from juniper, we often associate with being like light and gin and tonic.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a hell of a lot of stuff
and
to it.
Fierce and rich.
And I'm getting one of my favourite accords in the world, which is ink.
And
I'm getting like a bottle of fresh Parker Quink.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Is it Quink?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's bloody good.
It's interesting. You would think talking about these two fragrances, one could easily think of Tokyo being a much lighter fragrance. But actually, there's a lot of body to this.
Just as much personality.
There's a lot of personality, and that wasabi with the iris, like, it's a really interesting mix of characters.
And it's a different world as well. I mean, obviously, T-Rex is a different world altogether because it's not one that we even live in now.
Yeah.
But, you know, this sort of takes you to the other side of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you think, I'm going to go out and be an open spirit and see what I smell today in the streets of Tokyo.
So let's just talk about price a little bit. So
very clean as well. Somehow.
This is one of the bottles you will get with Gallivant. It's a little 30ml bottle,
very cute,
which costs £65 in the UK. I mean, if you're having a few fragrances, 30ml bottle is kind of an ideal size.
Oh, you do well with
and
that.
the whole nature of their company is that it's about travel. So these are perfect for just popping in your wash bag as you go away for a few weeks. The T-Rex,
slightly different story.
They come in 60ml bottles, so they haven't been released in the UK yet. They'll be released
next few days.
In 15th of September.
Yeah. I'll be buying.
They cost $175 for 60ml, which also happens to be, I think, the only place I know of them that's going to sell them in the UK is Bloom, which sells them for £175. So you might find out it's cheaper to buy it directly from the
US,
from Canada.
Canada,
from
Canada, from Canada.
Yeah, from Canada. And they're going to sell it on LuckyScent as well.
Yeah,
for
but I mean, of course, Bloom, that price may come down at Bloom in the future. We don't know.
We'll see. But
it's worth. I mean, it's worth buying. As far as I'm concerned.
Two absolutely cracking scents, completely different, really promising. Incredibly original.
It's so encouraging to smell these.
Really well put together fragrances. Really exciting.
Do you know, you smell fragrances like this, and then you walk out on your day-to-day travels, and you walk past, let's say a generic high street chemist that has lots of fragrances. And I know I say this over and over, but you smell the generic, mass-produced crap that's being produced. These have been made with care and love. The ingredients are really good. Yeah. There's a concept behind them, and they're interesting.
And I think why they're
so
particularly good companies is because they've got people at the head of them who are very passionate and knowledgeable and talented, and so have really been working with the perfumers to really kind of create their vision. And we were discussing before with these two companies, if I didn't know this was called T-Rex, would I say blood accord? Would I say canopy of vegetation? Would I say that? If I didn't know this was Tokyo, would I be talking about Tokyo streets and spicy food and wasabi?
Interesting question.
Possibly not, but the analogy we made, if you heard a song that was in a foreign language, we're classical musicians, so that happens a lot, but if you hear a song in Italian, you think that's a nice tune, there are nice harmonies, I think I really like that. But if you knew what the words meant, if you knew the story behind it and the story which inspired that composer, you think, oh my God, that makes sense, that's what he was going for. It's that amount of sadness. And I think it is, and these people are artists. Yeah. And what they're creating is more artistic rather than just like, let's bosh together a few nice smells and see if that will get us away somewhere.
I mean, classic example musically, O mio babbino caro. Everyone thinks, oh, that's a beautiful tune.
He's a pianist, not a singer.
Sorry. Yeah. But, woman there saying, I'm going to throw myself off the Ponte Vecchio into the river if I can't be with the man I love. It's heartfelt stuff, it's gut-wrenching stuff.
If you know what it means.
Yeah, you have to know what's going on behind. What if we swap these? What if I said that's T-Rex? Our mind would come up with associations. We'd make it work.
And these,
which is so interesting.
The perfumers, the artistic directors are planting the idea in your head, which makes your olfactory experience greater, I think.
Tokyo, diesel on the street, engine oil, brand new concrete buildings, someone with a chainsaw somewhere and sparks flying around. Or a piece of wood. But whatever, this thing here is the guide. Your nose and your brain.
But it's fumes for thought, can I say that?
Fumes for thought,
Yeah, fumes for thought, yeah. Lovely. Anyway, I mean, they're two absolute winners, so go out, sample them. Both of these companies sell samples directly from their websites, so you've got no excuse to go out and try it.
Happy smelling!
But until next time, happy sniffing!